gonna record it. Just
Okay.
started the recording.
Because I made that mistake earlier, like in a couple of sessions previous where we were halfway through a podcast recording. I was like, oh,
I'm glad
let's
you reminded
record it.
me.
And we had to have them a second time. So anyway, I just want to, that just, because of that mistake, I'm reminded of it now. So thank you all for coming. And thank you for giving me the idea of where you all are from. I know that some of you put in Johannesburg, Quebec. We have representation from the UK, someone from Dallas with Shiva. We also have Winnipeg, Manitoba, San Jose, Lisbon. Yeah, we got them from all over. Jordan, Dana's representing Jordan. All right, cool. In Ireland, well, we might as well get a world map out and start putting pins everywhere because we're represented everywhere. Colombia, yeah. Hey, Daniela, how are you? Okay, so this presentation is going to focus on how to test whether or not your product or service or idea has validation or desirability in the market. The bulk of the presentation is going to be about prototyping, and this is Alberto Savoia's approach to testing desirability in the market, but also how I've taken that approach and retrofitted it into something I call the Dash, which is a combination of design thinking and prototyping. By the end of this session, we may have time to go through an exercise to actually experience what it's about, but my goal with this is to give you an approach that you may or may not heard of that you can use in your own line of work for whatever purposes you want to use it for, whether it's to test features, bring it back to your teams or colleagues and have them incorporate it into their workflows to be more efficient and to basically get certainty better. This is meant to be value added for everyone on the call. So I'm going to try to avoid being a lot of information theater and concentrate more on the interactions with all of you to make sure that you understand what this is all about. And hi, Lisa. How are you? Nice to see you here too. Okay, so what I'll be doing is I'll be sharing my screen and going through first what prototyping is all about. Second, what we'll do is I'll go into the Dash and how that's different from prototyping. And then third, Nidu, depending if we have time after some Q&A, we can actually go through a interactive session in Mural so that people can kind of walk through the paces of doing something that's related to the Dash, not exactly as is, but it's close. That deals with professional goals for 2021. So that'll be a fun activity we can do towards the end. Right off the bat, does anyone have any questions that they want to field immediately in chat that I can do some quick answers to? Anything at all about what I went through or went over? I'll just take a moment to see if anyone's got anything. I do a countdown: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's get going. I'll go ahead and share my screen on my end. Just give me 1 second. And the host has disabled participant screen sharing. Nitu, can you give me participation? This participation rights to share what I got, please. Otherwise, I can basically draw and put it up on the screen.
No, we should have tested it earlier. Let me see where that control is. Multiple participants can share simultaneously. Let me know if you can share now.
Yep, I can. We're good.
Okay, awesome.
All righty. So what I'll be doing is going from left to right, as in the visuals you see here. Hopefully everyone sees on their screen an introduction to prototyping and some text that goes along with it. If you don't, put that in chat so that everyone can, that me and Nitu can know, and we can kind of troubleshoot on the back end. All right, so let's go ahead and get into full screen so that we're concentrating on this. So what we're going to be going through first is what prototyping is all about. And again, like I had mentioned earlier before, that this is a set of tools and techniques and tactics that you can use to validate a new product quickly. The originator or the inventor of this is the person you're seeing here. His name's Alberto Savoia. He originally developed this about a decade ago in Google. When he was kind of an innovator within the company, was looking to test ideas and products, but tried to do it in a way that kind of reflected the scientific method. And so he basically worked on this for quite a bit with not only himself, he put out a free PDF for people to kind of download this and check it out. It was translated into multiple languages. Then he was also working with people at Stanford to see where it could go. So there are people that have also published different works of like Richard Cox Brandon, Tina Seelig, other people at the D School. Started doing more prototyping with students, kind of getting an idea of what they consider prototypes, looking at what was in the market in terms of how people test their products. For quick reference, here's something that they had back in 2016. So about 5 or 6 years after its inception, where they started tracking all of these different types of prototypes, meaning pretend prototypes. They used popular things like Google Glass. Best Buy had something. Airbnb. Yeah, Google Glass. By the way, my 8-year-old son is here. So in case
It's called Google Glass.
yeah, it was glasses that Google made that basically it could reflect out and do 3D imagery with. I'll tell you about it later.
I know imagery, but what?
I'll tell you later. Then Airbnb was also what you consider a prototype, where the original founders just offered their extra space for a certain amount of money per night, and then they used that as validation from the market to see if people would really be interested in staying in a stranger's home for a while. And now we know that it's worth a ton of money at this point. But basically, what was going on is that there was more socializing around the idea that product doesn't have to necessarily go through a huge process to get validated by a lot of different people. You really can test the market quickly and efficiently with your ideas and see if people would be willing to buy what you're offering. And if they are, then it's kind of validation. They're giving skin in the game and going that way. So a couple of years ago, and this is how I was introduced to him, is I was standing in line at the Dallas Motor Vehicles office waiting to, I believe it was getting my tags updated for my car. And somebody forwarded me a video of his at Stanford where he was doing a presentation on this whole thing about prototyping. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because at the time I was doing design sprints and it was all about getting opinions and figuring out what people liked and didn't like. This took a different tack in that it said, okay, forget opinions, forget what people say, because what people say can be all over the map. What this essentially posits is that you actually go after data. You go to what people do, not what people say, and that provides the evidence of where things can go. So after seeing that, I said, okay, let's check out the book, see what it's all about, and started watching some of the videos that he had on YouTube to get an idea of what some of the more detailed aspects of things. And I want to give a little bit of my take on prototyping, since there may be some people on the call that it's their first kind of view into it. But here's a real quick primer on it, in that it's not for everyone. In my experience and with talking with other people, prototyping tends to be for people that are a little bit more risk averse, that don't mind micro failures in the interest of kind of having long-term success. Maybe there are also people that tend to lean towards analytics and data. If you're very opinion-based, like you really want to get consensus, sometimes prototyping can be something that seems a little too fast. That doesn't mean everyone can learn it or try it out or kind of use it in their line of work. But more often than not, prototyping tends to be more engineered or more aligned to these types of characteristics in people. Also, that this particular process, even though it's a quick introduction to it, has multiple phases. So the book that Alberto has kind of says, okay, here's how to get started. But to really see how prototyping works in the long term, usually you need someone like a champion. You need to kind of do iterations of the same thing very quickly, very cheaply. But the more the market kind of engages, the more you have validation and rationale to continue putting time and focus into it. Most prototypes are kind of engineered for sales. I may make mention of how people are going to purchase something or put skin in the game. But lately, when I've been doing the Dash with clients, they've been looking to basically figure out the desirability of their features, meaning that if they already have customers, how do you upsell them? For marketing, if we have a current marketing plan, how do we maximize our multivariate or A/B testing to see which one is more effective for signups or for getting email addresses? And also lifestyle prototypes are starting to become popular, where you use the same scientific method to say, if I stop eating 15 burgers a day, I will probably lose 10 pounds. That's an extreme example, but it's basically where people use that same kind of XYZ hypothesis to say, if I do these things, I'll probably have these benefits. I mentioned before, the prototypes tend to have champions or people behind them. Prototyping requires some patience. So even though it's fast and cheap with the experiments to see where things can go, so far what I'm seeing is that you have to be kind of patient with the result set and see what people do. And the prototypes need to be somewhat believable. A lot of examples that I've seen of prototypes, or at least the experiments, tend to be something where people feel it needs to be polished. If it's a website or something else, it needs to be really like slick and well designed. That's not really the case, especially with physical prototypes. There was an example of someone that worked at Amazon where they were changing the nature of a gift card. Instead of just something where you take an Amazon gift card, you scratch it off, or you look at the code, you have it scanned, and then you toss it and you're done. They were thinking of different ways that the bookmark could be actually functional, like a bookmark, or something where it actually folds out into origami or other things. And they use this as a way to prolong the life of the gift card package, but also to make it functional and useful for the end consumer so that it could be used for multiple things. So that was something that where they started out with cardboard, but eventually they became a full-blown product. Now, if you're interested in finding more about prototyping beyond what I'm going to be showing today, I will be giving access to this mural after the presentation, but there are plenty of resources that I've mentioned already, but plus some other ones you can use. I will say that I was reaching out to America before because he's the person that donated the Prototyping at Work PDF by Jeremy Clark. This is I believe it's if I remember correctly, because it's been a while since I've seen it, it's a document about how basically prototyping can work in multiple scenarios or examples or different work environments. Then there's a lot of the things I mentioned before, like the video lessons, the book, and so on. There are reviews and interviews with Alberto on the approach, as well as like some third-party kind of reviews of how it could work for different and how it works with different types of processes. And there's already a community that's starting up around it. In fact, if you're a fan of Clubhouse, Alberto is going to be doing something at 11:30 Pacific time, which is 1:30 our time. And you just have to look up his name. And he's going to be broadcasting with a couple people from InReach, which is a venture capital company. And they're going to be exploring how prototyping and looking at product early really helps in terms of finding some really great opportunities in the market. So again, just look up his name on Clubhouse and it should give you the time and the link to basically join that if you're interested. I'll pause here before going into the dash and see if there's any questions about prototyping that I didn't cover, or if I was understandable in that whole thing.
No, but there's a question from Shiva about, like, you talked about for people for whom prototyping doesn't work. What about the product? Are there certain type of products for which prototyping is not the best suited?
I haven't run into a situation where I can say that you shouldn't use prototyping to test something, whether it's physical or digital. I'm sure there are examples where there's probably different methods that are better, but if you're really taking the process as micro experimentation, just depending on what you think would happen with a particular product or service or idea, then I don't know of a restriction in terms of the product type.
Okay. Shiva, does that answer your question?
Does that work, Shiva?
It does. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? No, we're good. Right. All right. By the way, I have a very bad accent, so I apologize for that in advance. Okay, so let's go into the dash. And so when I talk about the dash, now we're going into something that I've created where I had the help of a lot of people, including some people on the call, to kind of explore this. And since I come from design sprints and I come from the world of design, UX, and so on, there was a piece of the prototyping that was missing for me. And it was primarily how to kind of set the stage for experimentation. How do you basically explore the problem space, figure out the right approach or hypothesis? What would be the idea that you would have? So I took my learnings from design sprints and combined them with prototyping to kind of do this. And in essence, it's a 3-step process. So it still has the same benefits that prototyping has, where you can do market validation through fast and cheap execution. You use your own third-party data or your own data instead of third-party opinions to basically validate what you're doing. And you also leverage the fact that there's no upfront research needed with this. But With this approach, you can explore product market fit, especially for new products and services, as a prerequisite for experiments. So you use the hive mind or the creative mindset of the team to share what they know, figure out what they need to know in order to be able to design or elaborate on opportunities, and then use prototyping to kind of go and execute. So the dash basically is 3 steps. It's exploring the opportunity, exploring the audience, and then determining whether the market is going to engage in what you're going to have as a prototype or your idea. The one thing to note about this is that if you already know what your opportunity is, or you already know who your audience is, you've got demographics, you already have all the metrics and all of that, you can bypass those 2 particular steps in this process and go straight to the market if you want to. The only thing you'll need to know is how to do prototyping, which is part of what the dash does in terms of teaching it. So in terms of participation, there are certain disciplines that tend to gravitate towards certain parts so that they don't have to be available for all 3, but it does help. For example, opportunity, usually strategy, and people who are very immersed in product tend to start at the very beginning, where they're kind of looking at the lay of the land, the competitive landscape, what the capabilities are of the company, and kind of putting 2 and 2 together and figuring out what they feel would be opportunities to exploit or to explore. In terms of the audience, customer service, sales, anything that's client and customer facing, usually is a great place to start with that, because they're the closest people to the customer and they know them very well, and they can probably represent them in terms of trying to figure out what products and services may work with them or not. And then in terms of the market, it's more of a catch-all between design, research, marketing, and brand. Basically, it's the representation of the company plus the understanding of the consumer. And that pretty much dominates the third part of this process. And that's where the bulk of the work is done, where you're making prototypes, you are setting up experiments, you are putting all the components in logistically for it to execute. And that tends to be where all the things come together and the rubber hits the road. Who can use it and why? It's essentially for a lot of different types of businesses and organizations, but it just depends on their nature or what they're interested in doing. In my experience, usually mature companies are looking for things to kind of grow off of the main revenue streams that a company has. So something called the acorn effect. There is a book about that. Excuse me. Where essentially you keep everything intact in like an enterprise environment. My goodness, I'm getting choked up about talking about mature companies. And essentially you create something that's a value add to the business, but kind of stems from that. For small and mid-sized companies, the couple that I've done earlier this year, it's been around both expanding internally and externally, whether or not that's feature updates or new services, but it allows the teams themselves, whether development or marketing or sales or design or UX and design and research, to come up with their own ideas and test them themselves rather than kind of go through an approval process. And then the approval process usually comes a little bit further down the road when there's something official that seems to have some real data behind it. Then usually there's a real meaningful talk about R&D spend and so on. Startups use this all the time for market offerings, trying to figure out what their customers are looking for, especially if they want to build an MVP. Solopreneurs, it's a matter of doing products and services that they think would appeal to their niche. And I'm currently doing a prototype a month to kind of see where my skills and abilities would serve better for different markets and for different people. Earlier in the month, I did something for Mural. And this month, I'm doing a podcast for prototyping that's doing really well. So far, I'm kind of a victim of my own success because now I have to spend more time with those things. But it's being able to test really fast an idea that I'm really intrigued by without spending a lot of time and money to do so, at least for me. I recently had a question about how this is done and any examples of those for some of the companies sizes that I mentioned before. There is one client I'm working with where there's a core team. There's only 2 people. Actually, it's 3, but the example here is 2, where they reserve time for different audiences that can feed them information that they need to know to build prototypes. So they go to people, somebody who knows business needs, somebody who knows audience, somebody who knows market, gathers all that information, and then these 2 or 3 people create the experiments and run them through, and then they come back to the people that are funding this or asking for it to give them some data around what's successful and what's not, And for those that are successful, they bring in subject matter experts or work with them more closely to see if there's something in particular that they can pursue. For startups, usually it's representatives from everyone. Usually everyone's at the table. It's very much like a design sprint arrangement, but it's more around who's available, but also what kind of prototype or what kind of experiment you want to do. For solopreneurs, it's a matter of which experiment actually gleans the most interest and has the most potential. The one solopreneur that's doing this is basically running 10 or 15 experiments at a time, all with different variations on demographics and places to go. They're using analytics to do so. When they find one that has revenue generation to the point or where they need extra help, then they go to an updated team. Maybe they bring in a couple of people or have some subject matter experts, and they run some more meaningful experiments that are more narrow. And they continue to do so until they have something that they can kind of come to the surface with and showcase for everyone else to consider and consume. And that is it for the dash. Now, excuse me. For the most part, the dash is something that's about 1.5 years old. It's something that as a business I sell. So this isn't a promotion for me to sell it to anybody on the call. This is just to kind of explain how I've taken the prototyping process and made it into something of a business opportunity for my own purposes and show how that's done with the exercise that we may do towards the end. But essentially the takeaway for the dash is that in 2 to 3 days, sometimes even less, you can take your ideas, put them into an XYZ hypothesis, or basically a way that you think that your ideal target audience would engage it, run some experiments online. Right now it's online, can't do much physically, but you run some experiments, you get data back, and then you can figure out which one of those is successful and which were not. I will say that usually experiments, 90% of them fail, 10% of them may succeed, but there's no guarantee. But there's a good chance that it's going to, which is what's important, you're going to learn which assumptions that you had early on actually made sense, that you validated those, and versus which assumptions you had were invalidated. And it's a continuous learning cycle about product and audience and product market fit, that eventually when you do strike pay dirt and you do find something that really has traction with your key audience, then it starts getting fun, because then you've hooked onto something that really has potential and you can put a lot of time and effort towards and hopefully reap the benefits of. And that is it for the dash. Again, we'll pause for any questions, any kind of commentary, or anything else people would like to share. So it looks like Jose said something about, is prototyping a type of validations towards patenting? So it can be. The couple of people that I talked to about the use of patents in Amazon, they tend to want to get to a certain threshold of validation from a data perspective in order to be able to start drawing up what they need to say, okay, here's the patent. I think somebody made the quote that it's like they have a whole bunch of stupid napkins at the patent office, because that's all that's all legal really needs, is like the inception of the idea to prove that it was originally from that company. But yes, it's prototyping can basically be a path of validation towards doing patents, towards doing trademarks, or anything else that you want to secure in terms of IP. And let me know if that answered your question, Jose. And Shiva made the comment to say, to me, it feels like the design of experiments and learning a testing plan. That's pretty much what it is. Is that it's building your muscle to do experiments, because not many people execute in that regard. But the idea is that you essentially start getting into the habit of knowing that failure is really just a mismatch. It's not a complete collapse of everything that you believe in. It's really, oh, I can't walk down that path. Well, I better try another path. It's like water. Oh, can't do that one. Let's try a different one. Oh, I can't do this one. Let's try a different one. So literally, yeah, there you go, Shiva. It's literally just testing. And once you get to that point, it's like almost cooking too. Do I add a little bit more salt? Maybe a little bit more. Do I add more salt? That seems about right. That's a simplified version of it. But when you start getting into that habit of experimentation, then that's when it really starts working. Anyone else? Daniela says, have you explored growth hacking experiments for non-new product service validation like the ones you talked about? For non-new product service validation. So like for existing product service validation, do you mean, Daniela? Or I want to explore that question a little bit just to make sure I understand it. Okay. So yeah, for existing ones, if you're trying to increase your customer base or to expand their awareness of what it is, then yes, this can be done the same way. They just have different emphasis where you're not concentrating on acquiring people. You're trying to expand the engagement of your existing consumer base with what you have in terms of, we have a new feature that we're updating, but we want you into the beta because we're going to be using this as an add-on, but we want to see if this is something that you would use. So if the people sign up for the beta, they get basically an extended version of it. But then the prototype is that they have a bunch of different experiments that if we put a big red button here, then people will use then people will start using this whiteboarding tool versus something else, whatever it may be. But then they try to anticipate the adoption behavior of their customer base with certain things they have. And as long as the data validates it, then they can continue to embed, like bring people in a way so that they're even more invested in a particular tool or a service or a product. So hopefully that answers the question. If not, then do a wag of the finger or something. Okay. Neetu, where are we at with things?
We're doing good. It's 12:30. We have 30 more minutes. I would love to try it out.
Okay. All right. So let me hang on a second. I lost my window. I'll go back to the original one. Okay. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and share this particular mural that I'm broadcasting out to the group so that you can go ahead and check it out. I'm going to give people editing rights, and I'll be kind of guiding people through a exercise that's part design thinking, part prototyping. So you'll get a little bit of flavor of both. Yes, I do like it. The kind of like the curve on both sides.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. Okay, so let me see here. Back to the chat. Okay. Nope, not that one. that's the link for Alberto's Clubhouse link I was saying before. Let me go ahead and share that off real fast. That's the wrong link. Let me get rid of that. I can't get rid of it. Hang on. I'm doing a little bit of a dance here. Okay, this is the one you should choose. So this is the Mural link to get into what you are seeing right now. And then I'm going to go into this particular activity as soon as I see enough people kind of coming into things. So what we're going to be doing here is trying out, like I said, a variation of prototyping and design thinking that basically takes from the Dash process, but kind of projects it out into something that everyone here can kind of explore and do. So if you never used Mural before, I'll go through some simple things that you can do to kind of engage with it. So the first thing I'll do is, now that you're in, I'll go ahead and move this a little bit. And I'll summon everyone here. So what you're going to be looking at is something called your professional goals. And what I'd like you to do is for 2021, even though we're getting into March now, I'd like you to go ahead and on these cards, put some professional goals that you have, development goals that you have planned for, say, like the first 6 months or for the year of 2021. And the way to do that is just basically take your mouse that you have, and on any of these gray cards, I want you to double click on one of them. And what you do is you'll be able to start the process of being able to type out what you're going to be doing. Now, you don't have to, if you don't feel like you want to broadcast what you're doing, that's fine. But know that everyone on here is anonymous outside of, say, America, who already has like an account on my workspace. You can go ahead and put in what you'd like to do as for your professional goals. This is an optional exercise, so feel free to just sit and watch if you'd like to. But you can basically go ahead and double click on any of those cards to put in a professional goal you have, or several. And I'll give everyone about, say, let's put 3 minutes on the clock and see what comes out of this. Okay. And we got a big try it yourself banner that I'm going to take out of there. If anybody has any issues, you can come on mic or come in the chat and let me know if you have problems navigating what you're seeing here. Jose, just go ahead and double click on or click on the link that says appmural.co, Jose, and that you should be able to get into that particular board. If not, I can summon you just to make sure that we're all in the same space. And I'll do that one more time, just like here. So you're going to be putting and double clicking on any of these cards right here, putting in a professional goal or a couple that you have for 2021. We've got about 2 minutes to do so. And since it's most of it's anonymous, outside of a few people that have like their names on here, you can also put some really bold and aspiring ones. Some like, I want to be president someday, or whatever you'd like to do. Not that it's going to be possible legally to do that this year, but something that you really aspire to be or to do. Whatever, they can be like very practical, or they can be very ambitious, whatever you'd like. It's all going to stay within this particular exercise. I won't be broadcasting this out. Like Gisela wants to run for governor. And I agree, Mariko, she kind of snuck in there a bit.
For president.
For reference, Gisela's, so the reason I know a few people that are coming on the call is because they're part of the Global Virtual Design Sprint community. And I usually share with them the events that are going on in my circle of influence, so that if they're interested in kind of being a part of them, they can. And I know a lot about Gisela and Americo and Abzul because I worked with them before. So that's the reason why, in case anyone was curious. And since we're talking prototyping as well, you could basically put in ideas for products. Like a professional goal would be to create a new type of pizza cutter, or to a soundproof way of drowning out all sorts of noise that's going in on a home office. Whatever you'd like. You all done? Thank you. You're not free to move about the country. Okay, so go ahead and finish up whatever cards you have, and take a look at what people have put on there. And there's these small little icons over here. They're called rock cairns. If you've ever been hiking or climbing in mountains, you'll see these as a way of navigating and showcasing where a trail is. If you see something over here on the left that somebody else has put in there, like create my new artificial Christmas tree, and you go, hey, I'm thinking about doing a new artificial Christmas tree. Take one of these cards, these images, and just place them right on top of one of these particular gray cards. So what this is doing is that it's a way to basically show affinity for a particular type of card, or a particular type of professional goal that somebody else has. And you can essentially find out if what you put on there strikes a chord or a balance with someone else. So just take a minute to put those cards on those cards that you see there, that that you feel you have an affinity for, that you say, yeah, this is something that I would definitely like to do this year. And somebody's making liberal use of the drawing tool. I have to lock down some of these sometime. Okay. So as things are kind of coming into play, hang on. I'm just adding more over here. Okay. Let's see here. Just checking chat real fast. Am I blind with the galaxy? Yes. And again, if you are not speaking or not on planning to speak, can you please mute your microphones if you haven't done so already? Right. So it looks like if I were to take a look at where people are putting cards right now, there's a interest to open your own business. There's another one to have my own company. So there's a lot of entrepreneurialism, it seems like. And there's a couple of other ones that include to support the company I work for, developing a more human-centric approach, implementing Pretotyping into my team's workflow. So we're going to color these as well, make them a little bit lighter, but know that those are primarily, let's go these and make them a little bit darker. There we go. Okay, so now we have these particular ones that we have for professional goals. And then what I'd like you to do is take a look at what's been done over the professional goals side. And over on the long-term aspirations side, what I'd like you to do is essentially put in what long-term aspirations or ambitions that match those goals. So if you're opening your own business, why are you opening your own business? What is the overarching kind of like aspirational goal that you have for this? Or if you say, if you have your own company, why do you want your own company? So it's basically asking the why behind the ask. Go ahead and put those long-term aspirations in this space on the right-hand side, and I'll summon everyone so that you're kind of in the same space and looking at what I'm looking at. So go ahead and double click on any of these cards to put in your long-term aspirations that correspond to the goals you just put in professionally. And let's see, we're just checking on time really fast. We'll give this about 2 minutes and see where we are. So Shima is asking, whose goal was it to build cheaper solar cookers? They'd love to connect with you. If this is you, then go ahead and put your me in, just say me in chat, and Shiva can know who she was talking about, or who she was.
That was me. Me too.
Uh-oh.
Sure. Sure, that's me.
You two should have a conversation then.
Yep, I found a sponsor.
All right, and if you're done kind of waiting for the timer to go off, same thing with the cards. They're on the right-hand side. Go ahead and put those cards over here on the right-hand side that you have an affinity for in terms of aspirational long-term goals. So things that you see on there, it's like, oh yes, income. I definitely want to put a card over there. Then go ahead and do so. I'll go ahead and make sure all these cards are all the way in the back because some think they're going to disappear otherwise. There we go. Sometimes the cards don't show up properly. There we go. I'll make some additional ones. Okay. All right, so let's take a look. We have a few. We have income. Hey, everybody wants a little income. I think that works. Let me go ahead and put it the right color here. And let's make sure we annotate that one. Well, maybe not that dark of a blue. Let's see what else we've got here. Satisfaction of building something. So that sounds good to me. I'm going to go ahead and ungroup this so that I can start. Can I? Wait a minute. It's not there. Okay. For some reason, it wasn't selecting. Let's make it this. And what else do we got? We have a few that are 2 in nature. Hey, there's those long-term aspirations. Thank you, Koala. Let's see. Satisfaction of driving one's destiny is another. That's good. Let's make that a little bit lighter. And I'll put in the other ones that are 2 here just so we get a complete view of things. So make this again light blue. I will take those as well as these. Oops. Make sure I select the right ones. Okay. I'm going to bring these over here. And I think you're kind of, people are putting 2 and 2 together where I'm going with this. I am eventually going to be taking this and replacing it with this. So if you're kind of seeing what I'm doing, and I'll summon people in just a little bit, I'm just basically setting up for the next particular method. And this speaks to more the dash side. So after going through these 2 kind of dimensions, both short-term and long-term goals, and I'll go ahead and summon again so that we're all looking at the same thing. So what you're going to do is take a look at what people have, you and others have done in terms of goals and long-term aspirations. And this is here for reference. So you don't necessarily need to adopt them wholesale. But the idea is that you're going to take a format. The format's listed here, which is a personal engagement hypothesis. So it says, in order for me to achieve this aspirational achievement, which is going to be something in blue, I have for the long term, I will do this particular action, invest this time or money to show my skin in the game, to do this particular action, which is going to be the 2021 goals, in order to achieve this professional goal in 2021. So actually I take that back. The to do is not this. The 2021 goal would be this. So I'll make it a little bit easier to kind of, I'll color them so that they're the same type. So I'll make this, because we ran into an issue last time with this. Let's go ahead and make this dark orange. And then this is going to be the blue part over here. Just like this. Maybe a little bit darker. There we go. Okay, so that you can make a better connotation. So in order for me to achieve this aspirational achievement, I have for the long term in blue. So this, you'll invest this amount of time, money, or both to show your commitment to it in order to do this particular action, whatever that action may be, to get you closer to your professional goal in order to achieve what's in this space in the 2021 goals. Or sorry, yes, the 21 goals. And there's an example over here to do so. And if you want to follow that along. So in order for me to become a better cartoon character illustrator for my presentations, I will spend an hour each weekday during the week to do practice drawing and illustrating human and cartoon figures in order to achieve my goal of being a better artist. So that's one way of kind of drawing this up. So if you'd like to, go ahead and look at the 2021 goals as well as the aspirational goals here. If one of these are yours or both of these are yours that have been here, then you can use those as anchors for this. So let's say if in order for me to, and I'm going to use this first one as an example, in order for me to have my own company, which is the first one here, then the last one is in order to achieve instead my professional goal for 2021, I'm going to take the one that says income and I'm going to say multiple revenue streams for my business. So that's an interpretation of that income card. But then all I have to do after that is just basically put in I will and to do. I will do what? Am I going to invest time and money to basically get multiple revenue streams? And what action am I going to do in order to be able to make this achievement, in order to be able to have my own company? So this is going to be what you think you could do, what you would experiment with. And that's the way to kind of go through this exercise. Does anyone have any questions about how to do this, or were those instructions clear?
Yeah, I actually was confusing because you put in the example you put now I have my own company, but here in the blue it says aspirational achievement you have for the long term.
Oh yeah, you're right. All right. So
And the
you
long
are correct, Gisela. You are correct. I am very confusing because I did this. So it should be this. You are correct. You are right. I have to make that clear. So it's basically to this. You are
then
correct.
the
So it
revenue
should be
stream
this. Yep.
that'd be like to achieve financial freedom. I will invest this amount of okay.
See how that
Awesome.
makes sense now? Yeah, I just had it backwards. My fault. So yeah, it's supposed to be income. So that's the way to draw it up. So that would be a way of formulating an hypothesis that takes like the aspirational goal. In order to get to that aspirational goal, I'm going to achieve these short-term professional goals in this particular way. So that's kind of the way to build it. So essentially, anyone can jump into one of these boxes here and give it a go. First, select something in the long-term aspirational goals, and maybe I'll kind of what I'll do is I'll change the location of these. So let's put the 2021 goals down below like this and bring them down below long-term aspirational goals. So they kind of match the format that we just went through, just like this. So that makes it a little bit easier. So there's a bit of a map. So the blue is on the top here. And then in order to achieve your short-term 2021 goal would be at the very last sentence. And then the sentence 2 and sentence 3, which is I will and to do. I will either invest time, money, or both. And then the to do is the action that'll get you closer to your professional goal, which is the action that gets you closer to your 2021 goal that you've put there. Does that make more sense? And shame on me for not making it more clear the first time around. So Nitu, we have about 9 minutes. I want to leave some time for Q&A if we need to. So I'll give everyone a quick 2 or 3 minutes to kind of work this out. We'll kind of review what people have put there. And then if they want to, they can work through the rest of the steps, like writing tests to map their engagement on their own, because the instructions are pretty much all there. And that's a takeaway that people who have attended this can use this for.
Sounds good.
Okay. I agree. Who was that?
He has some questions.
Okay. I'm game for that. If you do have questions ahead of time, you can go ahead and populate those in the chat. You don't have to wait till the 3 minutes are done. You can go ahead and put in what your thoughts are there, and we can field those while people are working on their particular statements. Yep. Okay. Okay. This assumes you know how to design your solution. What if you don't? When you say design your solution, do you mean that you know the course of action that you want to take to get your professional goal? Is that what you mean? Sylvia? And Jose says, so is this to figure out and find your why factor, or is this a way? It's to basically surface your why, your purpose for why you're going after this particular goal. And then once you surface that, as well as like your short-term aspirations in terms of what you want to get done this year, you basically map the two together using the I will commit this amount of time and energy or money towards it with this particular action, like sign up for a class or start running a couple of miles, or what's the concrete thing that you're going to do that will map to this professional goal that you want. And Sylvia says, know where I am, know what I want. The middle is missing. Yeah. So the in terms of like the know where I am and know what I want, it's kind of a map to what you want is your professional goal, like the last part of this 4-step process. The what you want to do or where I am is kind of an assessment that you have personally. Hey, Alden, you got to turn that down a little bit or put your headphones on. And then that, depending on where you self-assess, then that third statement would be this is the action I would take to basically to get to that professional goal. So it's a bit of self-reflection to say, like, what am I capable of? What can I do given my restraints or what I have access to be able to execute against that professional goal. And Krithka says, more like figuring out the path to achieve the goal. Yeah, that's essentially it with this. But the example that's being made here is that this is the exact same thing you're going to be doing with prototyping and ultimately with the Dash, is that you have some sort of aspirational goal with product, something that you want to do with your product in some fashion, or something that you want the product to aspire to, or to the service to aspire to. And in order to be able to get to that path, for yourself when you want to build it, I know, but then you have to do it in another room, bud, because I'm going to be about another 5 minutes. So you have to wait. Okay. So this is just a variation on that. With the market engagement hypothesis, you're trying to figure out how people would engage with what you are creating. This is a way of using it for personal use so that you can engage your long-term and short-term goals and figure out what the map is based on what you're capable of to kind of get there. And Neetu, we're at time, so I'm looking over the statements here, and I'll review them really fast. In order for me to have the satisfaction of driving my own destiny, I will invest 20 hours a week to network and build my business network to build my own company. That's good, because that particular one that's been put there is also something you can track and figure out, okay, how many hours have you, how are you going to track those hours? Or, are you going to basically put something in the calendar and block it off so that you can basically concentrate on networking, attending like events, social events, being part of a Slack channel? What would be your activities? But the how-to is going to basically be on the side in terms of building your prototype. But the meter will be, how many hours you do spend. Is it less or more than that 20? That's a good one. In order for me to support people through innovation, I will spend 5 hours a week to keep learning, to keep attending Robert's sessions, and build at least one experiment per week in order to implement prototyping to my team's workflow. So yeah, all of that's really good in terms of the metrics that you're after. So yeah, I don't know how many sessions I can actually do to support that prototype, but we can at least give it a shot. I am doing a prototyping challenge so that every particular month I'm asking people to follow an approach to building a prototype. Actually, it's not every month. It's just for the next 3 weeks. We already started this past week and going through an approach to learn how to build your own prototype. So as long as you're part of that, then you'll definitely understand how to do it. In order for me to make an impact as well as get some recognition, I will invest this amount of time and money to learn and build solar cookers. But how much time and money? You actually have to put in there what exactly you're going to be doing, because then you can actually measure it. If you don't, you're just going to, it may be unfinished, but I'll assume it was in the middle of being edited. To understand the nuances of it and feasibility of solar cooker market, in order to achieve solar cooker company as successful as Instapot. I agree with you. And then finally, in order to drive my own destiny, I will focus 6 hours daily overcoming my fears and obstacles to give shape to my business idea and develop the initial artifacts in order to have my own company. That sounds great. Like before, the next steps that we didn't get to would kind of get into the how that you would do that. But these are all great starts, and they all correspond to something that could be measured, and they looked great. So even though my instruction set was kind of messed up in the very beginning, you all pulled through very well. So thank you for being patient with that and struggling through some of the things that I was trying to explain.
Thank you, Robert, for the awesome session. I totally enjoyed, especially the practical part of it.
Great. And again, if anyone has in the chat has any feedback that have been through the session, you can put a one word. Bye. Are you leaving? If you have a one-word description of the session, that would help. Neetu, is there any place that they can go to find out more about Women in Product? I know there's a Facebook group. Where should they go online to find out more about the Women in Product?
Yeah, let me give you a link.
Oh, by the way, I wonder if Snap cameras. Hang on a second.
Okay, so this is where our LinkedIn group is. We have our Facebook group as well. And that's where we post information.
By the way, Neetu, if you're As is your son or your daughter?
Yeah, son.
Okay. Gisela, you already seen it already. I'm using Snap Camera. I just want to
Yeah.
see if you.
Yes.
I should learn how to do that. That is cool.
Yeah, Mariko is going to join into it. So that's something we use in the community to kind of get it done as well. Great. So you're putting those in the chat for people that want to get a hold of you. If you want to look me up on LinkedIn, just look for Robert Scrobe. That's the best way to connect with me. I'm usually there kind of getting everything or where all my material is and where I post the most. So if you want to go ahead and go there or connect with me on LinkedIn, that's the perfect place. And beyond that, I'll put some links into the mural before I send it out, and I'll provide that to you, Neetu, as well. And I think we only have a few people that are on camera, but otherwise I would do some sort of snapshot and just continue on. Whoa, I don't like that at all. Let's go back to this. Woo, that's better. All right. Let me just check in and see if there's anything in chat that I may have missed. I want a session on how to use Snap Camera. We actually did one. We had a walkthrough of Snap Camera a week ago. So all you have to do is just look up Snap Camera on Google, and it's an add-on you can basically put into your Mac or your PC, and then it's something that kind of sits in your tray so that you can basically put all sorts of different faces. I will tell you that it tends to get really addictive because people will go like, oh, what does this look like? Or what does this do? Because you can do all sorts of variations. You can do something where you could be a potato, like a tiger potato. So you can do this, or you can basically look like you have this on. So there's a lot of fun things you can do with it.
Yeah.
Sounds cool.
That was the best.
Cool.
Thank
All right.
you, everybody, for joining.
Neetu, are we all set? Are we good? Okay.
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much for coming, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. Do reach out if you want to connect, and check out the Women in Product materials that Neetu put into the chat, and I think we are good to go. All right? Have a good week.
Robert. Thanks,
See you later.
everybody.
Bye, Gisela. Nice seeing you. Abdul, nice seeing you. Americo, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.